Hello and welcome to a show that's frankly much sadder than our usual brand of depressing. Today we're diving into the bleakest of economic indicators, GDP per capita, a fancy way of saying how much money a country would have if it divvied up its economic pie slices among every single citizen. And, spoiler alert, for some countries that pie is looking more like a sad, uncooked dough ball. We're talking about the 15 countries at the very bottom of that list, where poverty isn't just a statistic, it's a brutal reality. Now, before you get all but John, GDP per capita doesn't tell the whole story. You're right, it's a flawed metric, like judging a book by its cover if that cover was made of economic data and constantly on fire. But it does give us a starting point, a snapshot of just how tough things are in these corners of the world. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey that's less about laughing at the absurdity of it all and more about staring slack-jawed at the deeply unfair systems that keep these countries trapped in a cycle of poverty. First up, we have Burundi, a small, densely populated nation in East Africa. Now, when I say landlocked, I don't mean it in a charming, oh look, no beaches kind of way. I mean it in a severely limits trade and economic opportunities kind of way. And unfortunately for Burundi, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Years of political instability, corruption, the classics that haven't exactly helped matters. Imagine trying to build a functioning economy while constantly dodging metaphorical and sometimes literal bullets. It's a tough ask, folks. And if that wasn't enough, Burundi is grappling with a healthcare system that's about as robust as a wet paper bag. Malaria, HIV, AIDS, malnutrition, these are all daily realities for far too many people. It's a grim picture, I know, but understanding the complexities of poverty is the first step towards, maybe trying to do something about it. Next, we travel to South Sudan, a nation that's barely a teenager, having gained independence in 2011. You'd think a fresh start would be a good thing, but unfortunately, South Sudan's story is one of conflict, displacement, and a whole lot of oil that seems to cause more problems than it solves. See, South Sudan sits atop a wealth of oil reserves. You'd think that would be a one-way ticket to economic prosperity, right? Well, not so fast. Decades of conflict have turned this potential goldmine into a curse, fueling violence and corruption, leaving the economy in shambles and its people struggling to survive. Millions are facing hunger, education is a luxury few can afford, and healthcare? Well, let's just say a visit to the doctor is often a luxury. It's a heartbreaking situation, made even more frustrating by the fact that South Sudan's potential is undeniable. But potential doesn't put food on the table, does it? Our next stop is Malawi, a small landlocked country in southeastern Africa. Now, Malawi is known for its stunning natural beauty, Lake Malawi being a particular highlight, but behind this picturesque facade lies a harsh reality. Malawi is heavily reliant on agriculture. And I don't mean the kind with fancy tractors and irrigation systems. We're talking about subsistence farming, folks, growing just enough to feed your family with little left over to sell or, build a robust economy. Climate change has thrown a wrench into even this precarious system, with droughts and floods becoming increasingly common. Add to that a lack of infrastructure, limited access to education, and a healthcare system that's struggling to keep up, and you've got a recipe for, well, you've got Malawi's current predicament. Mozambique, a country on the southeastern coast of Africa, is blessed with abundant natural resources and a beautiful coastline. Sounds idyllic, right? Well, here's the catch. Mozambique is also on the front lines of the climate crisis, regularly facing the wrath of cyclones and floods. These natural disasters, which are becoming increasingly frequent and severe, are like a giant cosmic reset button, wiping out infrastructure, crops and livelihoods. It's like trying to build a house of cards in a hurricane, except the house is the Mozambican economy. And the hurricane is, well, an actual hurricane. Despite its resource wealth, Mozambique struggles with extreme inequality. A small elite controls most of the wealth, while the majority of the population struggles to make ends meet. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're headed to the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country that's practically synonymous with the term resource curse. See, the DRC is ludicrously rich in natural resources. We're talking diamonds, gold, cobalt, you name it, they've got it. You'd think this would make the DRC the envy of the world, a veritable economic powerhouse, and yet here we are. Decades of conflict, corruption and exploitation have turned this potential paradise into a poster child for how to completely mismanage your natural wealth. It's like finding a winning lottery ticket and then immediately setting it on fire while standing in a rainstorm. The DRC is a stark reminder that resources alone don't guarantee prosperity. Our next stop, the Central African Republic, is a country tragically trapped in a cycle of violence and instability. Imagine trying to build a functioning economy while simultaneously putting out fires, both literal and metaphorical. That's the reality in the car, where armed groups control vast swathes of territory, displacing millions and leaving the economy in ruins. Basic services like healthcare and education are practically non-existent in many areas, and the constant threat of violence makes even the simplest tasks, like farming or running a business, incredibly risky. It's a heartbreaking situation, and one that's been largely ignored by the international community. The car is a stark reminder that poverty isn't just about a lack of money, it's about a lack of security, opportunity, and hope. Madagascar, the fourth largest island in the world, conjures up images of lush rainforests, unique wildlife and, well, dancing lemurs. But behind this idyllic facade lies a country grappling with deforestation, environmental degradation and, you guessed it, widespread poverty. Madagascar's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, and as climate change brings more unpredictable weather patterns, farmers are struggling to adapt. Cyclones regularly batter the island, wiping out crops and infrastructure. It's a classic case of a country blessed with incredible natural beauty, but cursed by a combination of factors, environmental, economic and political, that keep it trapped in a cycle of poverty. Sierra Leone, a country on the west coast of Africa, is still picking up the pieces after a brutal civil war that ended in 2002. The scars of that conflict run deep, both physically and psychologically. Rebuilding a nation after such devastation is a monumental task, and Sierra Leone faces an uphill battle. While the country has made some progress, poverty remains widespread, access to basic services is limited, and the economy is struggling to create enough jobs for its young and growing population. It's a reminder that the journey out of poverty is a marathon, not a sprint, and requires sustained effort, investment, and a little bit of luck. Niger, a landlocked country in West Africa, is facing a double whammy. It's one of the hottest countries on Earth, and a large portion of it is covered by the Sahara Desert. This means that Niger is on the front lines of climate change, with desertification threatening to engulf even more land and make life even more challenging for its people. Imagine trying to grow crops when the ground beneath your feet is turning to sand. That's the reality for many in Niger, where agriculture, the backbone of the economy, is becoming increasingly difficult. Add to that political instability, poverty, and a lack of basic services, and you've got a recipe for, well, you've got Niger's current predicament. Liberia, a country on the west coast of Africa, is another nation rebuilding after years of civil war. The conflict, which ended in 2003, left the country in ruins, its infrastructure destroyed, its economy shattered, and its people deeply traumatized. While Liberia has made significant strides in recent years with a democratically elected government and a growing economy, poverty remains widespread, particularly in rural areas. Access to healthcare, education, and other basic services is limited, and corruption continues to be a major challenge. Chad, a landlocked country in Central Africa, is no stranger to conflict and instability. Bordered by some of the most volatile countries in the region, Chad has become a haven for refugees, putting a strain on its already limited resources. The country is heavily reliant on oil exports, which, as we've seen in other countries on this list, can be a blessing and a curse. Oil wealth has the potential to lift Chad out of poverty, but it also has the potential to fuel corruption and exacerbate existing inequalities. Guinea, a country on the west coast of Africa, is another tragic example of the resource curse. Endowed with vast reserves of bauxite, iron ore, diamonds and gold, Guinea should be an economic powerhouse, and yet, here we are. Decades of corruption, mismanagement, and political instability have squandered Guinea's potential, leaving its people marred in poverty. It's a classic tale of a country blessed with natural resources, but cursed by its leaders. Burkina Faso, a landlocked country in West Africa, is facing a growing crisis: the spread of extremism and violence from neighboring Mali. This has led to a humanitarian crisis, with millions displaced and in need of assistance. The violence has also devastated the economy, disrupting trade, displacing farmers, and deterring investment. It's a tragic situation, and one that highlights the interconnectedness of poverty, conflict, and instability. Rwanda, a small landlocked country in East Africa, has made remarkable progress since the horrific genocide of 1994. The country has rebuilt its economy, invested heavily in education and healthcare, and become a model for development in the region. However, challenges remain. Poverty is still widespread, especially in rural areas, and the legacy of the genocide continues to cast a long shadow. Togo, a small country on the west coast of Africa, is facing a familiar set of challenges: poverty, inequality, and a lack of economic opportunity. The country is heavily reliant on agriculture, which is vulnerable to climate change and fluctuations in global commodity prices. Togo has made some progress in recent years, but it remains to be seen whether these gains will be enough to lift the country out of poverty. Well, there you have it, a whirlwind tour of the 15 poorest countries in the world, according to that blunt instrument of an economic indicator, GDP per capita. It's been bleak, I know, but here's the thing. Understanding the problem is the first step towards solving it. These countries, for all their struggles, are filled with resilient, resourceful people who deserve a fighting chance. They deserve our attention, our empathy, and yes, our support. So, the next time you see a headline about poverty in Africa, don't just scroll past. Take a moment to learn more, to understand the complexities, and to ask yourself what, if anything, you can do to help. Because even small actions, when multiplied by millions, can make a world of difference.